The only way to fight injustice and promote freedom is to speak a resounding no to the forces of international complacency and a responding yes to those whose souls thirst after the cool waters of liberty. Damn it, I almost got all of it. I'm going to redo that later. President Ronald Reagan throwing absolute freaking bars, bro. Man was a savage, and my kind of savage.
From high atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where love means never having to say, I'm sorry I made that extraterrestrial parasite explode out of your chest. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America and all ships at sea. Welcome to the Blast Radio. So good of you to join us tonight. Coming up on the worst people in the whole wide world weekly update. The NBA outs itself as a less convincing version of pro wrestling. The Democrats and the fake news media shrug off the comical failure of their big No Kings weekend by instead moaning about dead drug smugglers and free ballrooms. Bruce Springsteen spends 20 plus years lecturing his countrymen about how they're terrible people if they don't vote the way he thinks they should vote, and then can't figure out why his big Hollywood biopic movie died an embarrassing death at the box office. But first, it is time for everybody's favorite segment of the WPWWWU, the one you spend the whole week looking forward to when we check in once again with our very good friends across the pond in the jolly old Islamic Republic of Britannistan, where this week, in what I guess we can describe as a refreshing change of pace, British Muslims got into the Halloween spirit by dressing up like Antifa and holding a counter-protest to a protest that wound up not even taking place because it was banned by the government. Could we ever make this stuff up if we tried? Why, no. As a matter of fact, we could not. You see, the UK Independence Party was going to march through the Tower Hamlets neighborhood of East London on Saturday, and if you don't know who the UK Independence Party is, UKIP to its friends, these guys are the super-duper big, bad, evil, racist monsters. If the Tories are just a little bit racist and Reform UK is slightly more racist, UKIP is like the swastika-shaped cherry on top of the racism cake. UKIP is so racist, it's like the Totenkopf tattoo on the chest of a Democrat Senate candidate from the state of Maine. And what is it that makes UKIP so abominably racist and so morally intolerable to the sensibilities of people with all the correct opinions? Well, not only were they strongly in favor of Brexit, but they never wanted anything to do with the European Union in the first place. Worse yet, they don't think Britain should be any sort of racial and cultural melting pot. They think British society and culture were built exclusively by white English-speaking Britons, and they are not afraid to say so. I know, it's a lot to take in, but we'll get through this together. And it gets even more horrifying still. UKIP is so racist and so xenophobic, they don't think huge numbers of Muslims should be allowed to come live in the United Kingdom who have no intention of making any effort to assimilate themselves into British culture. They think British people shouldn't automatically be ashamed of the fact that Great Britain brought modern civilization and democratic self-government to vast areas of the globe that would otherwise still be living today in a state of primitive Stone Age savagery under the thumb of some tin pot despotic autocrat. And worst of all, UKIP doesn't believe members of the LGBTQIA community should enjoy special rights under the law, or that British citizens who are still true believers in the British state religion should be hauled to jail for reading the Bible in public. So needless to say, these guys aren't very popular on the airwaves of the BBC or in the pages of The Guardian. You know how here in America, on your cable fake news channels, it's simply treated as a matter of fact that Donald Trump is either Hitler adjacent, just like Hitler, or worse than Hitler? That's the way the British media talk about UKIP. So UKIP was planning on having a little demonstration, a bit of a march through Tower Hamlets in East London, which is the most heavily Muslim area of the UK and also the most crime-infested area of the UK. And I'm sure those two facts are totally unrelated. But the Home Office said, nope, don't think so. You're not going to have any march because that might... say the words with me, it might inflame community tensions. And so the march didn't proceed. The counter-demonstration, on the other hand, went ahead with the full blessing of Sir Keir and the stormtroopers. Why do you need to have a counter-demonstration when the actual demonstration never happened? Unclear. And when did British Muslims start cosplaying as Portland Antifa? Also unclear. But if your correspondent was a cynical man, he might say, number one, the counter-demonstration was allowed to go ahead because the British government has a different set of rules for Muslim immigrants than they do for their own citizens. They don't call him two-tier Keir for nothing, am I right? And number two, because the radical Islamist cause and the Antifa cause are one and the same, and it's all being financed by the same people. And the aim of the financiers is to rot and destabilize Western societies in every way that they can be rotted and destabilized. If this was an organic grassroots type of thing, actual community activism, in other words, then the community organizers might have concluded, since the thing we're counter-protesting against isn't going to happen, there's probably not much point in counter-protesting it. But it's not an organic grassroots type of thing. It's not actual community activism. And so the dark money billionaire financiers of the thing said, God damn it, we paid good money for all those black trousers and black sweatshirts and black helmets and black balaclavas. And we paid good money for all those signs and banners and placards. And by God, we shall be damned if that's all going to go to waste. And speaking of protest money going to waste, it would seem safe to say at this point that the financiers of last weekend's No Kings protests, in which a bunch of geriatric ex-hippies in wheelchairs and a bunch of weird sex perverts in animal costumes spent the day chanting inane slogans and trying their level best to pretend they were just delighted to be spending an afternoon in each other's company, didn't achieve the desired result they were seeking to achieve. And how do we know the desired result wasn't achieved? Because everybody had stopped talking about it by Tuesday afternoon, and they had moved on to moaning incessantly about the White House ballroom? Well, yes, evidently the East Wing of the White House was some sort of imperishable historic and architectural treasure, and President Trump has committed the dastardly, unconscionable crime of the century by pulling it down in order to build an interior space that enables the White House, for the first time ever, to accommodate a crowd in excess of 250 people. Now, if you watched Curmudgeon's Corner on Wednesday, and of course you did, you already know this is a ridiculous load of bullshit, for the historical record tells us clearly, unambiguously, that the East Wing of the White House was absolutely nothing until 1834, and then it was some faucets and some shower stalls until the 1870s. Then it was a couple of greenhouses until the first decade of the 20th century. Then it was a garage and a cloakroom until 1942, when a two-story office block was built on the site in order to disguise the presence of the presidential emergency bunker that sits beneath it. But don't try telling any of this to the denizens of the fake news performance artist community, because they want you to believe a very terrible, very awful crime has been committed against American history this week. Except that argument starts failing pretty rapidly when it runs up against the actual facts, as fake news performance art narratives often do. For it's pretty difficult to argue that some affront against the history of the nation has been perpetrated due to the fact that the First Lady and the official White House calligrapher might have to temporarily relocate their offices. But CNN and NPR, they have both got the answer for that rhetorical conundrum, for they both, hilariously, apparently with a straight face, published columns on Friday saying that, damn it, the reason the East Wing is an historic and cultural treasure is because the president's private movie theater was there, and this irreplaceable cultural artifact, it's the equivalent of the American Rosetta Stone to hear these idiots tell it, is now no more. So let's just take a moment to run through the logic here. The president loses his private movie theater, and the country gains a 900-person state ballroom for which the U.S. taxpayer will be charged $0. And that's a bad thing? Because call me an ignorant, uncultured bumpkin if you must, but it seems from where I am sitting that if you're a person who cares about democracy, this is a change you ought to be celebrating. A state ballroom with a capacity of 900 will enable far more Americans to attend events at the executive mansion than have ever been able to attend such events before. And the price we pay is that the president and 30 of his closest friends can no longer enjoy an intimate private screening of the latest Steven Spielberg picture. And that's somehow a defeat for democracy and not a victory. Oh, and also, inconvenient truth alert, 15 years ago, Barack Obama spent $376 million of taxpayer money installing a basketball court and some new water pipes, and CNN covered that story like it was the greatest thing that ever happened to the Republic. And speaking of basketball courts, if you watched Curmudgeon's Corner on Friday, and of course you did, then you know a lot of people in the NBA, which evidently doesn't stand for no betting allowed, have got a lot of splaining to do. Because every single thing that happens on the court during every single NBA game now has to be viewed with suspicion. And this is a scandal that goes far beyond some rigged poker games being run by the mafia in order to gain leverage on certain players and coaches. It's a scandal that has the potential to wreck the league entirely, because when the paying customer no longer has a reason to be convinced that the product on the court is being played on the level, he is not going to remain a paying customer for much longer. And that's the situation in which the NBA now finds itself. And it will remain so for as long as these online sports books remain legal. When players can place wagers on their own performance and make huge sums of money just by playing badly on purpose or removing themselves from games, then all bets are off now, no pun intended. We already know about the example of John Tay Porter of the Toronto Raptors, who was banned for life by the NBA last year when he made $1.2 million by intentionally failing to secure his sixth rebound and then removing himself from the game with a fictional injury, because there is an over-under line on every aspect of every player's performance in every game. And Porter placed a very large wager that he would have fewer than 5.55 rebounds in the game in question. And now we've got the additional example of Terry Rozier of the Miami Heat, who's one of the players who was just arrested in the FBI probe, who, according to the indictment, told one of his friends to place large wagers that he would underperform his usual stats in this one particular game. Then he pretends to get injured midway through the first quarter, comes out of the game, so he winds up with fewer points, fewer rebounds, fewer steals, fewer assists, fewer everything. And the friend makes $200,000 by betting the under on all of those things, and then they split the ill-gotten winnings 50-50. But a few questions are begged here, and the biggest one is, Terry Rozier, just how big an idiot are you? Because a bit of arithmetic yields the fact that your yearly salary is $26 million. That means you make $317,000 per game, and you're going to take a chance on wrecking your career, getting banned for life, so you can make an extra $100,000? You're serious right now? If you dropped $100,000 on the sidewalk, would you even bother picking it up? That is like 1 hour's wages, you impossible fool. And speaking of impossible fools, Bruce Springsteen used to be a musical artist who made himself very famous and very wealthy by pretending to identify with the plight of the average American working man. Me, I am too young to remember when he had that sort of street cred, because my earliest memory of Springsteen is when he threatened to sue Ronald Reagan for playing Born in the USA at his campaign rallies in 1984. Apparently, Reagan's people committed the terrible faux pas of thinking that was a pro-American song. And the boss said, no, goddammit, it's a song about how much America fucking sucks. And I shall not have it played for any happy sing-song sing-alongs at any Republican rallies. So you will cease and desist these activities immediately, or my lawyers will be in touch. And that was, 41 years ago? Since then, Springsteen has campaigned for every Democrat candidate in every election, and since Donald Trump came along, he has really had no compunction about stating his belief that people who vote for Trump are pretty much the worst people in the world so far as he is concerned. But here's the thing about building your reputation on a perceived connection with the common man and then going out of your way for decades on end to slander and alienate and lecture and insult the intelligence of that very same common man. When you do that, and Hollywood makes a big, lavish biopic about the story of your life and your career, you might find that half the people in the country want no part of going to see it. Because who wants to go see a movie about a guy who hates your guts and doesn't hesitate to say so? The box office projections said the Springsteen biopic was on track to make somewhere between 12 and 15 million on opening weekend. What did it wind up making? 8. So if you went to see this thing on opening night, there were probably like half a dozen other people in the theater, maybe less. But maybe Bruce is one step ahead of all the rest of us. Maybe he went on FanDuel or DraftKings and bet 20 million that his movie would flop worse than the bastard love child of the Marvels and Captain African America, and he is laughing at all of us right now. And with that, my work here is done. That's all I've got. This has been the WPWWWU for the 26th of October, 2025, and I now transmit you into the loving arms of my distinguished colleague, your illustrious co-host, the one and only, your friend and mine, Mr. Caucasian Sasquatch.
Tactical nuke incoming!
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Blast Radius. Tonight we are going to be discussing Alien Earth. For some absurd reason, we both watched at least most of it. I can't judge you if you didn't. It's very interesting, clustered chump. We're gonna go over a video that I brought from one Mrs. Gabriel Torch, that is Chicklet Teeth herself and the most terrifying woman on the internet, in my opinion. And then we got to discuss the whole ballroom situation, because this is an absolute travesty and amazing that no one knows. I mean, no one seems to know that the only purpose for that 2-story building is because the way the land rights in DC are written, you have to get permits to build up. There's no telling what's under that joint, is all I'm saying. Like, they say it's the emergency presidential bunker. You don't know. It might be a tunnel straight to Area 51. Anyway, without further ado.
Did you hear what Swalwell said today? Swalwell actually went on one of the Sunday shows and said, if you want to be the Democrat nominee in 2028, you have to sign a pledge that you are going to destroy the Trump ballroom. Because who is Eric Swalwell? I mean, in addition to being the guy who farts really loudly on live television, he is the guy that when the first Democrat comes along and says something stupid, and the second Democrat comes along and says something slightly stupider, and the third Democrat comes along and says something really stupid, and the fourth Democrat comes along and says something really astoundingly, colossally stupid, Eric Swalwell is the fifth guy who comes along and says, hold my fucking beer.
Right. He just goes for what is it called? Extremists? He goes extremist.
Yes. Whatever the craziest thing that anybody in my party has said so far, I will out crazy it. And then I will fart.
And it seems to be a regular event for these people to get together and do that on camera. It's an amazing thing. I mean, Liberal Hive Mind has made an entire career and a brand new a social media site on the fact that these people do exactly what you're describing.
And ballroom derangement syndrome is an actual thing now. Like that's wow. a phrase that has entered our political lexicon, because they are really incredibly upset about this ballroom that no taxpayer has to pay one single dime for. And it's of all the things to be upset about, it kind of tells you they're probably not in the best position right now as parties go. I would submit.
I mean, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? They've shut down the government because the Republicans refused to pass a whole bunch of fat pork bills, right? There's a whole bunch of crap that's been shoehorned into the freaking budget, and they're just like, nah. And I guarantee you, if that budget were to go through with the Democratic addendums, the Antifa show would start right the fuck back off. They'll pick up right.
Oh, of course it would, because they've got all those stupid little line items they're trying to sneak in there. You know, your transgender operas for indigenous Peruvians and LGBT democracy grants for the East Balkans, and we know what all that stuff is. That stuff is all untrackable, untraceable slush money that gets funneled around a few different NGOs and shell companies, and it goes right to Antifa, and that is how Antifa pays the rent on all their safe houses that they have in downtown Portland. How do you think Antifa pays for so many safe houses in downtown Portland? That's how they do it, because that's their source of income. Because you
I
can't
afford a house.
It's not like anybody's going to go back several years later and say, "Oh, the indigenous Peruvians didn't get their transgender opera." No, not first. You make it just ambiguously worded enough, just as untraceable, untrackable, and it's free money for whatever rat bastard you want to send free money to.
All right. Before I forget, we need to roll back here a little bit and do some appreciations, because we got a new member, Scotty Waddles, which seems odd, but okay.
Yeah, I thought he was already on the membership rolls, but
thought he was.
Thank you anyway, Scotty. You are an absolute legend, my friend. We
got Scotty Waddles giving you $10.
Boom! Thank you very much, Scotty Waddles. Again, I can't thank you enough. If you were, as I was mentioning to Mr. Sasquatch backstage before the show, if you and I are ever in the same zip code, you are never buying yourself a drink.
Facts. We got a dude named Skeet Pick, which I'm going to give a participation trophy just for showing up. Right?
Indeed.
John DeNicola, Queen Bird. We got Michelle. Hello, Michelle. How you doing? We got, no, that's me. I shouldn't call me out. Kissy May and Alwine. Captain, oh my captain's blasting off. Yay. Mike 23 has joined the chat. That's magnificent. Like having him around. And Alfie sent you $5.
Boom.
Boom. I got to get something for us to play. I keep saying I'm going to
do it. The money. We're in the money.
You can't do that. That's copyrighted to the wazoo, bro. We got the DFDS podcast, right. And Darlene McGee has joined. The 10th man came in to say hi. How you doing, bud? You can go to sleep.
Hello, 10th man.
Oxycat. What's up, baby? You know, she owes me a little moose knuckle.
Dang.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask about that.
She's a big game hunter. We got Casey May giving you $5. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
And that covers it, I think. If I missed you, type in chat. I'll try to catch you up at some point. Sorry about that. Where were we at?
I was just about to wonder out loud why it is such a terrible thing that the White House should have an interior space that is larger than the average small town high school cafeteria. Because President Trump, I'm sorry, but he's absolutely right when he says it's embarrassing that if you want to host an event at the executive mansion and you want to have more than 250 people there, then you have to have an exterior spillover area with a bunch of tents and umbrellas in it. And that's just embarrassing. You know, we shouldn't have a president's house that has less entertaining space than the president's house in freaking Montenegro or Andorra or freaking Serbia or wherever. That's just, we should have a big, magnificent state ballroom. And when we have a big, magnificent state ballroom, as I mentioned in the monologue, it's going to enable lots of people to be able to attend events at the White House who never would have been able to attend events at the White House otherwise. And I fail to see how that is a bad thing for the country. And I think the Democrats oftentimes, they just don't spend a lot of time thinking through the things they say before they say them, and thinking, you know, extrapolating out the logic of the thing they're about to say, because they are so busy just reflexively rage-gasming over every single thing Trump says and does that they wind up totally beclowning and making fools of themselves over and over again. I think they imagined that they probably wanted to still be talking about the No Kings thing, and so the Sunday shows this morning, it was all, the ballroom sucks, got to get rid of the ballroom is intolerable, and the other thing was, we need to stop blowing up Venezuelan drug boats because that's murder, and goddamn it, that's so bad. And you know, of all the two things to focus on the Sunday shows, that's what you came up with, Democrats. I mean, really, in addition to the fact that you guys have still got the government shut down. I mean, not a very strong set of looks.
So, okay, let's back up to the beginning of that. The ballroom. Don't they have a huge functional center at Camp David?
Yes.
And isn't
But
that
on,
where most of the state functions that are over
on
200
the actual
people?
White House grounds, the biggest thing you have is the East Room, which can fit 250 people at best.
Right, but that's what I was saying is haven't they been using for like the past 20 years Camp David's location as the semi-official ballroom for presidential functions?
Yeah, because that's what you have to do if you want to have a quote unquote White House event with more than a couple hundred people at it. Then you have to move it off site, and
Well,
that kind of
if it's
sucks
on-site,
for people who would like to have the chance to attend an event at the White House. And a 900-person ballroom fixes that.
and if it's on site, it's weather dependent, right? Because if you and I were to feng swangle an entrance into one of those shindigs, neither of us would ever make it through the door, right? Like we would be that overflow that they're talking about. And so
Yes, we would be the ones who wind up out on the patio underneath an umbrella with our
which I
wives'
got
high
no
heeled
problem
shoes
with.
sinking into the ground. And that's actually why Trump also built that new patio that he just built a few months ago, because when you have events in the East Room and you have to have an exterior overflow area, then all of the ladies' high-heeled shoes would sink into the ground. And Trump, as a man who is in the hospitality business, stuff like that drives him absolutely crazy. And it should. He likes to be a good host, and good hosts don't have their female guests sinking their shoes into the ground. That's just not what good hosts do, and he wants to fix that.
So am I to take this to mean that Democrats wear flats?
Yes, only well, the women do. Only the men wear the high heels. But ching.
You win this round, sir. Okay, so we had
If I
this
could throw a picture of Sam Britton up on the screen right now, I would do it.
right. Oh my god. So we've got this scene where there's a basically a nondescript white wing building right next to the White House, in part of the White House, that is essentially used for like extra space, has been since the dawn of time. It's basically an oversized broom closet for pages to store shit in. There's a bowling alley and I think a movie theater over there, right?
Yes, Nixon's bowling alley and the president's private movie theater, which are both now no more. And
Not anymore.
I think actually, in point of fact, Nixon's bowling alley got destroyed in the process of constructing Obama's basketball court. But nobody talked about that being a historical crime, and God, I can't imagine why.
I only heard one mention of it, and it was long after it had happened. I didn't even know about the Knicks. I knew about the Nixon bowling alley, but I had no idea anything had happened to it until like way after it was a done deal.
I think we should have kept the bowling alley just because bowling alleys are awesome and they are such an endangered species now.
Well, I'm just curious how many world leaders happen to have a bowling alley and a movie theater in their house. I imagine it's more than you would expect, but not as many as you would hope.
And I thought it was so funny. I just laughed and laughed that CNN and NPR, both of them, the best angle they could come up with was that, for the argument of why the East Wing is some imperishable cultural and historic treasure that must be preserved. It was because of the president's private movie theater. I mean, that's what you guys came up with. That was the best you could do. And I think that really says it all, frankly.
So there was this discussion I saw in one of the press conferences with that fucking blonde shark that he found. What's her name?
Levitt, Caroline Levitt.
Yeah, her.
Oh, she is a stone cold killer, dude.
She is, and I love it. I love every.
I love it too. Yes. Oh yeah. Yep.
I could just sit and watch her press conferences for fun.
Imagine being that impressive at 27 years old. I mean, God damn it.
And I mean, she has a completely different style to the previous press secretary of Trump's with the binder of doom.
I know. And you want to talk about a personnel upgrade? Baghdad Buckwheat to Caroline Levitt.
I was talking
an order of magnitude personnel upgrade.
The Trump's previous White House secretary.
Well, it was first. It was Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who is now the governor
Not
of
her.
Tennessee,
Blonde.
and then it was Kayleigh McEnany, who's on Fox News now.
McEnany had the binder of doom.
Yes, she did have a big binder of doom, but that's what makes Caroline Leavitt so impressive. Is she don't need no stinking binder.
What's better is that she has a dude to her right that's holding a folder this big, and he stands there until somebody asks a question, and then he hands her stuff. She turns around and blows that shit completely out of the water with video evidence. Yep. I love it. What I want her to do is hold up one of those pictures that's just green screen, and hold it for a second, just stand there, and then set it down so that people could meme the living shit out of it easier. That would be fun as hell.
I misspoke. Governor of Arkansas, not Tennessee. I apologize. Thank you, Kissy May.
Excellent. What's up, Tootie Bug? Welcome in. Kevin Bartholomew. I got that. I see that.
You got that. You got this all covered.
All covered on all sides. Yeah, no, I don't see anything, historic or unchangeable about the East Wing at all. It's 42 is when it was built. It's been updated a couple of times since then, but not a major renovation of any type, dude.
Yeah, and I did a whole video about it the other day.
I mean, we like progress.
Yeah, and it was Jefferson was the first guy who did any construction in that area because he thought it was ridiculous that the White House was so small and it sits on such a large site without anything else around it. So he built a couple of nice, classy Greco-Roman colonnades coming off the sides, and the locations of those wound up, of course, determining the future locations of the
You're twitching out a little bit, bro.
and West Wings, but he didn't plan on them fill up the space it was in better than it did. And then it's 1834, Martin Van Buren, before anything actually gets built there. We have some faucets and some outdoor shower and spigot type things, so that the groomsmen of the White House can wash the horse shit off their shoes and so forth. And then it stays like that until the 1870s, and they build some greenhouses out there. The greenhouses remain until the Theodore Roosevelt administration in the first decade of the 20th century, and he builds kind of a carriage house / garage where you can, we've got that's the period where we've got cars replacing horseless or cars replacing carriages, so you can either park your horse or your carriage or your car. And then he builds a cloakroom that's adjacent to it, so you park your car, you come in, you hang your coat and your hat on the peg on the wall, and then you process down the Jefferson Colonnade, and then you enter the executive mansion and are greeted by President Roosevelt. And yeah, it stays that way until 1942 is the first time that something that properly can be described as a building is built on that spot. And it's only built because they need an excuse that there's construction activity happening there, because they are also building the presidential emergency bunker, because it is, of course, World War II now. We are at war with Japan and Germany. Germany is hard at work building long-range bombers. We don't know if they're going to be able to hit our mainland, but if they do develop that capability, then we need to be able to get the president into a secure underground location. Also, we are working on an atomic bomb, and if we're working on one, then they probably are working on one also. So that's another reason why we need a hardened underground location where we can evacuate the president to. The location of that bunker was actually never disclosed to the public until after the events of September 11th, 2001. But yeah, that's the only reason that building exists is.
Go ahead. Finish your sentence. Okay. Do you remember why that was disclosed? The president disappeared. He went off radar completely for like 9 hours. No one could figure out where he went.
It was actually the vice president who got taken down there because Bush was in the air the whole time. Because remember, he starts the day in Florida. Then the news of the attack comes in. And they immediately get him in the air. They go to Barksdale Air Force Base, which I believe is in Mississippi. He does a short statement there, and they get back in the air and kind of
stop. Hold on. I need you to back out of StreamYard and restart it and come back in, because it is twitching out real hard on you.
10 hours after the attack, if memory serves.
You didn't even hear that. Wow. Here, let me try it in the back chat. Now, can you hear me?
Have you gone frozen, or is that me that's frozen?
That's you. I think it's you. Yeah, it's you.
I can still see myself moving, but I can't see you moving.
But can you hear me? Yeah, I'm not moving. He can't hear. He can't see any of this. All right. Let's do this. I hate typing. All right, am I freezing up and stuff? Is this my problem or his problem? Let's be clear about this. Chat. Which one of us is freaking out? Because I'm gonna drop him out and bring him back, and then I'm gonna drop out and come back and see if we can clean some of this up because it's driving me crazy. I really wanted to know what he said about there. I'm good, right? I don't have any notifications that anything's going weird or anything, and I'm watching myself on YouTube over here. It's also not glitching, but he seems to be on all sides. So I'm going to let this process through. And meanwhile, I'm going to play this little jewel that I have found here, right? Everybody knows and loves Mrs. Gabriel Torch, Miss Gabriel Torch. This is Chicklet Teeth Extraordinaire, and she's here to ruin your entire fucking day.
You might have seen a story about rodents changing as a result of humans, and I wanted to know if New York rats are actually larger, and I got a lot of interesting answers. Yes, I just sit around asking myself.
All right, we're both.
Oh, there I am.
Yeah. Okay. Do this. Nope. Immediately frozen.
Immediately frozen.
Yeah. Want to do a modem restart? I got 6 minutes over here. I think.
Let's just proceed.
All right.
Play the thing you were rolling.
And I find out, and I share it with you. There are roughly 9 million people in New York City and roughly 3 million rats. There actually could be quite a lot more than that, but no one's entirely sure. New York rats are mostly brown rats, thought to originate in Asia. They've traveled all around the world thanks to humans traveling on boats. They are our little terrifying companions. They can be a pound or more, maybe even 2 pounds, and that's significantly heavier than they would be in the wild. That's thought to be because they have a lot of food. Normally, these guys would be running around a field somewhere, but instead they're eating our...
Do y'all remember during the lockdowns, all of the animals going insane in all of the cities? Like the pigeons were randomly attacking people with hamburgers in the park when someone
like horses running through empty city centers. That was fun.
That was fun. But the rats in New York went especially nuts. They started invading the different restaurants in various places, like in numbers, invasive, right? And they came in and did things like chewed through freezer walls and stuff that usually doesn't happen. But because there was no tourism and because there was nobody going to work and nobody leaving the house, there's nobody like actually eating in the streets. And the rats after the first week were in full blown cannibalism mode because they've got a really high metabolism. I mean, that was terrifying. The monkeys,
like Mike 23 just mentioned, the New York City's giant rats are one of the most legendary things about the city. And I guess their upcoming communist mayor is going to be the new biggest legend next to the giant rats.
And the alligators in the sewers. Right?
Trash, and that can make them fat, just like us. I'm not totally sure why I have such a visceral reaction to these little guys. Personally, I think I just never got over the 1700s and the plague. And yeah, if you've ever been to New York, they are huge.
Were you there, madam?
Yes.
I mean, you're pretty pale.
If you want to be technical about the thing, the bubonic plague was the first gift that globalism ever gave to humanity.
Right, yeah, that's right. Right before syphilis, gonorrhea, and freaking what was the other
I
thing?
mean,
smallpox.
Once we started having international ship travel, boy, lots of Pandoras started getting opened up, didn't they?
Absolutely, those boxes just never close.
My cat is 11 pounds. I think I would need a savanna if I wanted to go after New York City rats. Granted, that is like a $12,000 cat, and I probably wouldn't set it on rodents. Now, we have found a lot of changes in animals that live close to humans. Rodents can have differently shaped skulls. Swallows tend to have shorter wings as they fly around bridges and buildings. And of course, we know that dogs can digest more sugar than wolves who live outside because we keep feeding them. For rats, what we have found is that they're making more coagulant. They have genes that help make them immune to the pesticides we put out for them. So just poisoning them is not a great idea, in part because if another animal eats them, they can be poisoned too. Some have suggested using birth control for the city populations. Yes, they would put up pellets that have hormones that would effectively sterilize a rat.
Question: where do those rats go to die, and what happens to the birth control after that? And where do they pee? Is another good question.
I often wonder about that too. I wonder that about lots of large animals. Like you will that you see them alive, but you never seem to see them dead. I mean, I guess we know that when whales die, they just kind of drift all the way down to the bottom and get fed on by various stages of predators on their way down. But where do dead Sasquatches go? As long as we're asking these questions.
The Smithsonian.
Smithsonian. There you go.
Yes, sir.
And might reduce their populations. It's not that different than how we deal with, say, mosquitoes by releasing sterile males. It also means that if something else eats a rat, they aren't going to be poisoned either. They're just going to be temporarily infertile. Only time will tell if this is actually an effective method. Now, a lot of people do find rats adorable. I understand they make pretty good pets. They're relatively clean and quite intelligent. For me, I don't get it. I respect you if you like these guys, but they have been responsible for extinctions. We bring them along with us. They tend to eat native bird populations. And yes, I know that cats do too. Cats are an absolute disaster on the ecosystem. They should not be allowed outside. And I hope people aren't letting their rats roam around. It's usually not how they get here. I also asked myself the question, during COVID, were rats just running around looking for food that would normally be provided for them?
Yes.
Yes. And they were accessing places that they wouldn't normally access in search of that food, like you were just talking about a moment ago.
There was this one story I come across, and this is the one that blew my mind. This is when I realized that, like, oh crap. So there's this newspaper kiosk down on like Times Square, or a couple of blocks from Times Square or something like that. And historically, this newspaper kiosk carried various types of candies and, a handful of brands of newspapers, a double handful of magazine brands, and that's it. It used to carry smokes. They stopped doing that a while back.
Boo.
It's all that's in there. This kiosk is essentially a steel box. It was built to match the surround. Like at the time when it was built, there was a couple of trolley cars and a railroad nearby, and so it was built kind of a pre-industrial gauche kind of. It's lots of corners and edges and things, but it's mainly a steel box, right? It's got these big shutters that you shut down on it, and some big things that you close in front of the newspaper things. Rats chewed their way into that place and completely eviscerated everything inside of it. And they did it in a week and a half because the people running it either couldn't get to it to check on it or didn't bother and just restocked when they got back. But it was a 100% loss of everything in that kiosk.
Oh yeah, they will consume everything if you give them half a chance. And then the spaces that they can squeeze into is freaking amazing. I mean, when you compare the size of the rodent to the space that it can actually squeeze into, it's one of the most amazing things in nature, even though it's kind of gross and causes lots of property damage.
There is a series written by Harry Harrison called The Stainless Steel Rat. And the premise behind it is that there's always been rats, but when men went to space, a brand new type of rodent was invented. These are called stainless steel rats. Like, any idiot can live in a concrete building and survive. It takes a true genius to jump into a spaceship and survived the cosmos out there, right? And he references himself as being a modern stainless steel rat because he's the greatest crook of all time.
That was actually one of the questions I was mentally asking myself when I was watching the Alien Earth show was, where the hell did they get a dead rat? And they never answered it. They just managed to get a dead rat from somewhere.
All right, we'll get into that in a minute. We got like 12
People
minutes
have
to kill.
reported during the isolation that they would see more wildlife, and that includes rats. I imagine they probably had some pretty serious disruptions to their food sources because they tend to follow people. And if all of a sudden people are not going into the city, that's a disruption. There's also a lot less noise, and we saw that for a lot of wildlife. I can say personally, when I walked on campus, when no one was there, the place was swarmed in feral cats. There's actually a lot of pretty good environmental effects when people were indoors. We do know that nature can recover pretty quickly.
Did y'all catch that? Look at the look on her face when she says this.
In feral cats. There's actually a lot of pretty good environmental effects when people were indoors.
I think we've got a little bit of a political viewpoint creeping through here.
Oh, it's not creeping, bro. This is an overwhelming shadow of oppression in this chick. She wants the transhumanist agenda to occur yesterday.
And she thinks the lockdowns were just fantastic.
Were absolutely the best thing that ever happened. And I have to admit, there's one thing I have to admit. When it rolled around to that third week, we had the most beautiful days I've ever seen in my life. Zero humidity, no rain in sight, sunshine all day long, 85 degrees. It was in like, dude, that's wild. Wild.
We do know that nature can recover pretty quickly, but if anything were to happen to people, it would be absolute chaos for a while as the environment adjusts. What do you think? Is my fear of rats a little paranoid? Am I overblowing it? Because again, there was the whole losing half of Europe that one time. Granted, that was fleas, and I get that, but still.
We like to imagine a single hand,
No, that's a different show. Calm down, girl. It's okay. Okay. So rats are evolving. Oh no, it just happened again. Rats are evolving in response to human interaction. Essentially, just like she mentioned with the swallows, they're getting shorter. I'll get back to you in a second, Artie. They have shorter legs, larger thighs, whatever they have instead of thighs, but that little piece of meat there is fattier. They can process more sugar. They are virtually immune to diabetes at this point. And if you leave them untended for any amount of time, they become an invasive army that takes over your entire city while you're not looking. So, if you can turn your head for a second. Welcome back, bro. You good?
Yeah, totally lost internet. Not sure why.
Yeah, it's been happening back and forth. When I first started, I was having problems, and then now you're having problems. So it'll be good. It'll be a great show. Rats are literally or specifically city rats now. This isn't just any rat out there. This is New York, Philadelphia, the big cities. These places, LA, all of the rats are truncating faces. Their heads are getting narrower. Their bones are getting more loosely attached, which means that they are capable of being bigger and fitting through a smaller hole. I think we're slowly inventing mammalian snakes.
It's kind of a fascinating example of human-driven evolution in the animal kingdom.
Unintended selective breeding, I think, is what that'll come down to.
Yeah.
And
yeah, because you've got what are supposed to be wild creatures who live their entire existences for dozens or hundreds of generations in a completely human-built environment, and that's bound to have evolutionary impacts, and it's kind of fascinating.
Absolutely. Why does it not autofill your name? Can you share your channel link backstage? So I don't have it. My my
Sure.
computer's decided it doesn't know who you are for some reason. Whatever. Anyway, and you'll
One
see
moment.
this in other things also. You have the swallows, like she mentioned. Swallows are developing more aerodynamic bodies in that they can actually turn and twist faster than those from the hinterlands, right? They have shorter wingspans, wider control feathers, thinner quills. They're built slightly different than your average swallow out there. There he is. Which one I asked? 10th man. That's Captain Curmudgeon right there, bro. Pick him up. I'm going to try to get him to come on Raging Tomatoes one night, but he's going to take some convincing. We might be able to just pay him to do it, but I was going to ask.
Episode number 92, and people still ask who I am.
I know, man, but you know, yeah, I get it. Lizards, specifically iguanas in Florida, have started developing colder, or rather lower brumation temperatures, right? Which means the fact that they can develop a lower brumation temperature means that they can move farther north than you ever guess.
Absolutely.
Same thing with alligators.
Yep.
Farther north. Also, the crocodile population, for whatever reason, the American crocodile population has recently seen a bump for some reason that we haven't figured it out. I think that's right. Isn't it brumation with reptiles? I'm almost certain. I'm correct.
And it goes without saying that the endemic extent of an animal's habitat, just because it's what we have observed since the start of recorded human history, doesn't mean that's always where it was, because these same species might have previously existed in wildly different places, because the planet used to have wildly different climatic conditions, and humans used to be less widespread also, and that obviously affects where animals go and live and have their habitats as well.
Right. Let's take, if you go and investigate shark attacks in the U.S., you'll find one up around Indiana. And when I went and tried to find that specific shark attack, I found 3. One
I would not have guessed that.
One was sort of assumed to be a shark because a large fin was witnessed immediately before the kid got dragged under. I mean, okay, we'll let that happen.
Indiana shark attack seems like a rather counterintuitive phrase in my mind, but strange things happen all the time.
And then there was a guy working at an aquarium that got his hand mangled by a reef shark or a white tip or nurse shark or something they had on exhibit. Just
right, and I guess that's part of the equation too. Any place that you have an aquarium with sharks in it, even if it's a totally landlocked place, I guess is a potential location for a shark attack to happen in.
So there is allegedly a breeding population of bull sharks that exist almost exclusively in the Mississippi River. A few genetic studies have been done on this, and they do not very often exit the fresh water. They seem to have adopted something of a migrational pattern where they move down to a Gulf estuary somewhere and they do their reproduction, and then they move back up. And for whatever reason, the pups, when they're born, immediately move back up the Mississippi. Something like 99% of them do. And so these are not a separate species of shark. They're just a bull shark, but they go farther north than virtually any other saltwater species known to man.
Not only are they going into fresh water, but they're going against the flow of the river, which is doubly amazing.
Supposedly Lake, what is it? Okeechobee?
Yeah, Florida.
Has a breeding population of bull sharks in it. And another one, I think Pontchartrain, maybe?
Sure.
That's in Louisiana, right?
Yeah, the lake that's by New Orleans.
Right.
The lake that flooded New Orleans 20 years ago.
So, I mean, Y'all be careful out there, folks. Watch your toesies. I once saw it's totally off base, but when I was about 12, I was in actually a local river with my pops, and I saw what I thought was an alligator because I had never seen anything like it. It looked like a big fish, but it had things on it like an alligator, and I couldn't make heads or tails out of it until I went to a wildlife book and started flipping through freshwater fish and came across a white sturgeon. And I went,
Oh,
that's what I saw. That one right there. And maybe one of these others that are East Coast jobs, but that's what it looked like. Was that my pops was absolutely astounded because he remembered it, because I made a big deal of it. I was like, do alligators ever have white scales on their back, like little spikes? And he's like, kind of, sort of, but not white. We talked about it all day because I was trying to figure out what I had seen. And the damn thing came up beside a 12-foot buddy boat and was at least 9 foot long. And
that's a hell of a sturgeon, dude.
For a river fish, that thing was fucking gargantuan. I've never seen a fish that big before or since in a river. Right.
Yeah, you could eat off that son of a bitch for quite a while.
All right, so we have something resembling conspiracy theories for some for the what's the name of the show? Alien versus Alien Earth.
Alien Earth.
That's it. Alien Earth. And I'm gonna do this. All right, Alien Earth people, listen. I don't know if you, I don't know how many of y'all are interested in watching this series, but it is an exercise in self-flagellation to get through it. And I want to save the big finish for a big finish. Okay, so the plot. Okay, can you blow out the plot pretty quick as far as it goes?
You know, that was actually one of the first things I planned on mentioning, and I know this is a conversation that we always come back to, but if you asked me to summarize the plot of this thing in less than 100 words, I don't think I could do it, because the closest theory I have is that this is at least 2, possibly 3 film scripts that somebody decided to shove together and make into an 8-episode long alien story. As I told you yesterday, I am not very well versed in the lore of the Alien franchise. Frankly, I'm not sure why the Alien franchise has persisted for so long. I'm not sure why there has to be 7 or 8 movies and God knows how many TV shows and comic books or whatever. I think, honest to God, I've only ever seen the first 2 movies. And the way this show starts out is it's like they are attempting to make a shot-for-shot remake of the first Alien movie. I watched all 8 of these episodes. It wasn't like background viewing. I wasn't distracted. I watched them all as attentively as you watch a thing when you want to be able to do a review of it. And I don't think I am any closer to understanding what the plot actually was. And there's not really any resolution to the story at the end, except everybody kind of looks at the camera and says, please bring us back for a second season, which isn't good. When you invest 8 episodes in watching a thing, you need to give the viewer some kind of resolution. And I also, I did my homework here. I did my due diligence because I watched all 8 episodes and then I finished. And right before we came on the air, I watched Gary from Nerdrotic. I watched his review and I watched the Critical Drinkers review. And I am still no closer to understanding how the story elements fit together or what the actual plot is. What is your 100-word summary of the plot?
Okay, first of all, not only can I not do that because of the nature of how this thing is put together, but I think it would be foolish to attempt to, because it is not a plot. I firmly believe
it's things happening.
Well, no, there are plots, multiple plots, right? And if this was intended to go for 5 seasons, that would be really cool. But I don't think that's the way this thing was put together, because it looks to me like the Alien plot is independent largely from the series plot, and the series plot is independent largely from the synth plot, right? So for those
Yes.
of you who don't know, there's a super genius who's like 20 years old, and he's got a jillion dollars, and he's using all his money to develop artificial human bodies. Turns out
We'll call him totally not Mark Zuckerberg.
totally not Mark Zuckerberg, runs over here, develops these superhuman strength bodies with amazing potential, and yet have no AI to operate them. And after, I would assume, some extensive testing on adults, he determines that only children have the ability to make the transfer from the human body to the artificial body. Pause. Do you know what happens to the children getting these new artificial bodies?
They are buried in a graveyard out in the jungle, and the what's her name, Sylvia, actually goes and visits them during the final or next to final episode, where she is then encountered by the adult xenomorph, who is then neutralized by the Weyland-Yutani security forces, and I'm pretty sure that's what happened.
Hold on, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Buried in a jungle out there. Okay, so they don't survive the process.
Correct.
How can you prove that the entity inside of that robot, that android, because I think that's the point of all this, is to create the synthetic androids from the later quote unquote shows, because this is, I'm not even sure where this happens in the freaking timeline.
That's the next thing I wanted to bring up, but finish your thought.
Okay, so the entire synth plot can be lifted entirely from this series and replaced with Space Marines, and it would not break the story.
Yeah, and I had no idea. Never would have occurred to me until I watched Gary's review, Nerdrotic. He informed me that this story actually takes place 2 years before the original movie, which kind of breaks my brain because it doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense, because the original movie, they didn't have any idea of the existence of this alien planet or the life forms on it.
You said yourself you're not real deep into the lore of it. The reason that ship was headed to that place was because the miners had all disappeared, and it was a big mystery to the people on the ship.
Oh, okay.
And none of the communications involved with the ship and anyone else explains any of it. They're just dumped off as a bunch of badass roughneck Marines here to deal with something, probably some crazy dude who like tampered with the air purifiers or something.
And I know there's a couple of other movies in the franchise that actually take place before this and before the original movie. So I believe this series is what's referred to now by the trendy kids as a midquel. Didn't know that was a word, but I just learned that too. So yeah, that's my lack of knowledge of the lore of the franchise coming to the forefront.
Okay. So Yutani Corporation was aware of the alien species. And this is a very telling aspect of the Yutani Corporation. They, as yet, at the start of the first movie, had not had a single survivor of a witness. Not one. They knew it existed. They had killed a handful of them. And this was another effort to go kill what might be an infestation of these things. Because if these things get loose on a planet, it's over, dude.
Yeah, and having only ever seen Alien and Aliens, it didn't make any sense to me that there would be such total unawareness of the existence of these things after a ship had already crash landed on Earth that was infested with what is it, 5 alien species we have now. I guess
Right.
A couple of the species introduced in the show are brand new to the franchise, and again, that's testing the limits of my knowledge. But that's what I heard mentioned in one of the reviews.
Some of those are that you're calling species are actually stages of life of the aliens. So
The xenomorph, yeah,
the xenomorph. Thank you. So the issue I have with the whole thing, beyond the time, and I'm going to go back to this several times over the next few minutes because I think it's important to drive home. You could lift the entire plot of the disaster area that ship creates and the humanitarian issue from the entire show and replace it with, I don't know, a freaking, and this gets rid of the alien, take the ship entirely out, no aliens, and you could replace it with a faulty nuclear reactor, and the plot would have very little issues dealing with it.
Yeah,
right?
Just swap it out for a different MacGuffin, and you're golden.
Yeah. It's MacGuffin roulette is what we're playing here. And
yeah, and it's also the good old J.J. Abrams mystery box theory in action.
And okay, so what I see, and I'm speaking very generally, we have a disaster movie genre series, not aliens. This is September 11th all over again. There are people standing in the streets trying to save each other and doing. Oh, wait, no, there's not none of that stuff. Everybody who encounters a piece of freaking debris runs for the freaking hills immediately like little pansy girls, right?
Yep.
The only people that stick around are the people who are actually being paid to do so.
And they do try really hard to evoke the aesthetic of 9/11.
Well, I think that was a good choice, though. I just don't think they did a good job of it.
And
I think they sold every single. Hypothetically, I don't know what city this happened in, but hypothetically, let's say it was New York, right?
Oh, I do know that. I can actually tell you that. I have that answer right in front of me here. It is the Weyland-Yutani Corporation vessel USCSS Maginot malfunctions and crashes into Prodigy's city of New Siam.
Okay, so it's think Judge Dredd mega city. It's like that, but higher rent area. The ship crashing would evoke the best in humanity. When you see thousands of people die, it, for whatever reason, it makes men help. If you remember in September 11th, right out, literally shit still falling out of the sky, and yet there were 5,000 people at ground zero grabbing chunks of mortar and throwing it off the top of the pile. Remember this particular scene. There was this huge section of exterior facade, probably 2 tons of freaking steel and concrete and glass. And 150 people got a hold to it and they shook it. And then a handful more people grabbed it and they shook it and some stuff fell out from around it. And then a handful more people crowded up because they were all throwing bricks and blocks and pieces of desk and stuff, trying to get it off the pile. And the 3rd or 4th time that thing shook, they just pulled it out, laid it down, and it went away like ants. It was amazing, bro. And
as you mentioned, a lot of the earliest bucket brigade type deals were formed by just random people, office workers and restaurant workers and what have you. Just whoever was an able-bodied man who happened to be there felt the need to go and assist in the effort to try and toss rubble aside and see if anybody was alive down there, because really terrible, awful situations often bring out the very best in the human race. And that was one of the days when we saw that phenomenon probably more powerfully than we have ever seen it at any time in our living memory.
And so this show, in my opinion, shits on that whole concept, because this ship crashes in the middle of a city, and anyone who doesn't have, which everyone in this city was hired by the company, but anyone who doesn't have a direct vested interest in dealing with it, who's not security, not part of the Lost Boys, not part of, you know what I'm saying? They all just run away. Everybody just runs away. There's no sense of humanity involved at all.
Yes, it is a show that definitely has a fairly misanthropic outlook to it, I would submit.
Right. I want to bring up another aspect that really struck me while I was watching it. I had to go back and watch, I think it was the 3rd episode twice, because the first time I watched it, I had some stuff going on in the room and I felt like I'd missed something. Turned out I really hadn't. I think it's the 3rd episode. After the exchange of consciousness from a little girl into one called Wendy, she's now sent and superhuman. it takes it, I think, an episode or two before it gets back to the same kind of feel of dystopia, when you realize that none of these people are happy. There's no one who was involved in any of this city that were running around being happy-go-lucky people. They were all walking around under the yoke of corporate oppression. You can see it on their faces. They are oppressed by technology and money and the ability to do anything under the sun and the inability to choose what to do.
And there are indeed some pretty drastic tonal shifts that take place when you go from being aboard the ship to being in the post crash disaster area to being on the private company island, Neverland, I believe they called it. And you know what I still don't understand, that I watched all 8 episodes, watched a couple of reviews, even read some stuff. I still don't understand why the boy genius Mark Zuckerberg guy gives a shit about the aliens. Like, how does that have anything to do with what he's doing with transferring the human consciousnesses into the synth androids, whatever you call them? And also, how does the chick, the female lead, have the ability to talk to the xenomorphs? That is never explained. That seems like one of the biggest plot points in the thing, and it's just never mentioned.
I'm hoping against hope that this recent Disney kerfuffle that's been going on shakes it up enough to bring out a better class of writers for the second and third season. Do you know how great it would be if we get this unmitigated? You remember me talking about Andor? How the first season of Andor was unmitigated woke garbage trash, and no one should ever bother. I went off for a solid episode about that fucking first season.
Mm-hmm.
I got actually upset. I was angry because it's such an easy hit. Anybody could have dunked it. And they screwed the pooch completely. And then they come in with the second season and manage to tie it all together through a very clever use of propaganda and what propaganda means.
I still haven't watched that second season. I got to get around to that.
It's worth it, bro. It is worth it. It is totally worth it. The second season, it just blows the first season completely out of the water and redeems the entire Andor series. Like, it makes it a watchable thing, but you still have to slog through that first season. It's a slog, but it's worth
the first season is definitely a slog, and it's one of those things where I can't conceive how it got such positive reviews as it did. I also don't understand that about the Alien Earth show. Did you know the Alien Earth show has 93% on Rotten Tomatoes? Can you believe that?
I kind of can. I think, all right. So the Alien franchise still carries an awful lot of water. Like, there's a lot of people who are diehard Aliens fans, dude. And they get all pissy anytime you do a crossover with Predator or Spider-Man or Venom or anything else, right? You bring anything else into the Aliens franchise and they're like, fuck you, dude. That's useless. Why would you bother? You got aliens, man. You know?
And I totally don't get that. Like what? I mean, sure, the first couple of movies are great, but I guess I feel kind of the same way about Terminator, that it was a great few movies. I don't understand why anybody felt the need to turn it into a multiple decade long saga series that keeps having to get flogged into the ground like a long dead horse. But,
Money.
Nobody asked me about these things.
With one exception, The Chronicles of Sarah Connor.
That was a good show. I like that show.
Yeah.
You raised an excellent point. Yep.
If you go from, let's say, we'll call it Terminator 3 to The Chronicles of Sarah Connor, right?
Yeah.
And kind of just lop it off there. There's a few other tidbits out there. There's a couple of plot points from some of the other movies that are really interesting, but otherwise completely irrelevant to the series. So why bother?
Oh, but, yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, because the Chronicles of Sarah Connor TV show is better than like the last 5 Terminator movies combined.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Far and away, worlds away.
And it is the only series I'm aware of that breaks the curse of Summer Glau.
Is there a curse of Summer Glau? I sure do like looking at her.
Yeah, no, and there's no reason for her not to be in a million successful endeavors, and yet everything she touches falls apart, including the Chronicles of Sarah Connor, if you've seen the last season. And the finale, that was trash. That was unmitigated garbage. What they did with it.
She was in Firefly, and people love that show.
That was her opening role, though, and it went, but it got canceled at the end of the first season.
Yeah, those are the only two things I think I know her from. Are the Firefly, and then the Firefly movie Serenity, I believe it's called, and then the Sarah Connor show.
Yes, but what I really like about the Sarah Connor Chronicles is the way Summer Glau depicts a super intelligent machine from the future is great, because she's already almost inhuman. And then she adds in these weird little twerks and clicks and things that are she's doing a flawless job of being a human, and then suddenly something twigs her freaking robot brain that's not from this time, and suddenly she stops being human. She does that same Arnold Schwarzenegger where some thread appears and she turns and squares off to it like a fucking robot, and does the same little preset, and then does the walk for about 3 steps. And after that, she's a ballerina, right? Once she's achieved a target, suddenly she is an unstoppable killing machine, and it's fucking beautiful.
And it just now occurs to me that Lena Headey was so good in that show. That was probably what earned her the role in Game of Thrones.
I could not remember the name of that woman to save my life. I've been sitting here trying to figure it out. Thank you. Linda Headey. Lena Headey? Lena Headey. Yeah. She does an excellent job of Sarah Connor, and being a soft, squishy Sarah Connor, not the winner that you know, not the bitch that you find in the freaking insane asylum with her bed strapped up to the fucking wall doing
ridiculous quasi-male action hero Sarah Connor. You're absolutely correct.
And she's mom Sarah Connor. And she's mom Sarah Connor, who's just she
still acts like a woman and not a G.I. Joe doll.
And my point to bring this up is it's not a lost cause. The Alien Earth franchise has a chance of being great. It hasn't been completely shot to the wind. The casting is quite. Timothy Olyphant was fine. I have no issues with anything he did.
I've never seen him in anything that I hated.
Yeah, no, he's an excellent actor. Yep. And he's one of the reasons why I kind of am excited about AI, because I'll be able to put him in various roles. See what it looks like.
I think the most recent thing I saw him in before this was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And so I started thinking about that. I think, as we've talked about before, that's probably, in my opinion, the best movie anybody's made in the last 20 years. And he is only in it for one sequence, but it's such a freaking bitching performance and so crucial to the rest of the movie, because I think, and I've long thought, that one of the most challenging things you can ask an actor to do is not to just play a character, but when an actor is playing a different actor, playing a character. And that's what they have to do in that sequence in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. You've got DiCaprio playing Rick Dalton, playing the villain of the week on the Lancer show, and you've also got Tim Oliphant doing the same thing. And it's easy to forget as you're watching it that it's actually 3 layers of artifice you're looking at. And my God, that sequence is so brilliant. You couldn't have 1 or 2 whiskey sours. You had to drink goddamn 8. Better quit drinking. I'm put a fucking bullet in your head tonight. God damn it.
I don't know that I've seen all of that movie. Every time I put that movie on, and about 5 minutes into the beginning, somebody shows up, or I get a phone call, or I've got to go do something, or the fucking grill catches on fire, whatever, something that I absolutely have to go to. I've never seen more than 15 minutes of that show.
Oh my God, are you kidding me right now?
Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm dead serious. I will immediately rectify that after I do some Uber squatching as soon as all this is over.
Yeah, because if we've never had detailed discussion about that picture, we gotta fix that urgently.
We can do that.
Because
absolutely.
Yeah, that's the, like I said, if you ask me for the best picture anybody's made in the last 20 years, I would have a hard time not saying that's it.
So what we have is three plots intertwined into the same movie, possibly forked plots. So you could feasibly make the argument that some of the interactions between the Lost Boys and the Utani crew, right?
And
It could
I
be an additional subplot.
actually have partial confirmation of that theory, which I will read to you right now from Wikipedia. In February 2019, Bloody Disgusting reported that 2 Alien television series were in development, one of them animated and one live action, one of them from Ridley Scott and one of them for FX on Hulu. In December 2020, as part of Disney's Investor Day presentation, the latter television series project was finally announced to be in development for the network, with Noah Hawley as showrunner and Scott as executive producer, being set on Earth in the near future. So there we go. That's confirmation of at least part of our theory that they had 2 shows that were in development and they crammed them together to make this thing, and possibly another unrelated movie script, I think, is still a possibility.
There's no need for the disaster plot.
There really isn't. And the Neverland plot is sometimes so tenuously connected to the rest of the narrative that, like I was telling you earlier, that it almost feels like somebody else had wrote a script that wasn't even for an alien movie, that it was just a treatise or a rumination on the concept of transhumanism that was kind of loosely based on the story of Peter Pan.
Yes.
And when they needed 8 episodes to fill out, they might have just grabbed that as a third ingredient and mixed it into the stew.
I kind of feel like it would go, okay, let's do this. Let's do this. You take away the synth, the Neverland plot, right? They're gone. None of that happens. Instead, you have regular synths like you would have Bishop from the first movie. These are the guys that they call in and run around and do all the stuff that the kids do, right?
Right.
It doesn't really change the movie all that much, except the crazy genius that's in the freaking ivory tower over here is even more so in control than he is of these children robots running around, right? And I think that's going to come up if there's a season 2. I think the children robot having free will is going to be an issue, right? Obviously, you can't build
and as
a
you
machine.
mentioned, it often feels so disjointed that there are entire sections, almost entire episodes, that you can just lift out of the thing and discard, and it wouldn't change anything at all.
You wouldn't miss much out of any particular plot, but you might miss some important points for the continuation of those plots.
I'm thinking especially of like episodes 2 through 4, where you really get the feeling that they are stretching this thing out because we got such and such number of episodes we have to deliver, and so there's a lot of walking and talking in hallways, which is what you often get when writers are trying to stretch a thing out as much as possible.
Or they're trying to lay in as much exposition as possible before they get into the actual doing of it.
Right.
But that's not.
And oftentimes they're delivering it pretty clumsily.
If those episodes specifically are exposition, not only is it terribly done, I have no fucking clue what the purpose of it was.
Me either. And as I was watching it, I was trying to give the show the benefit of the doubt by saying, if I was more familiar with the lore of the franchise, then perhaps there would be less stuff going over my head. But you're more familiar with it than I am, and I think you've pretty much confirmed my gut feeling.
I have watched virtually every appearance of aliens in any medium that I could find, regardless of where it came from, who wrote it. I've watched a bunch of fan fiction BS. One of my favorites, if interested, and I'll try to find the freaking link for you. There's this channel on YouTube called, it's a What If channel, but it's also a Warhammer 40K channel. And it's what if Superman went to 40K? What if One Punch Man went to 40K? What if, and one of them is what if the Xenomorph went to 40K? And that is an interesting consideration, because one hive planet from 40K and you've got billions of aliens and ships and technology and all of the stuff of the Imperium.
I got a question for you here. Let me find the link I'm looking for. I'm looking for the Alien franchise. There we go. I'm gonna read out the names of all the Alien movies since Aliens,
Okay.
1986, which is the most recent one that I've seen. You've got Alien 3, Alien Resurrection, Prometheus, Alien Covenant, and Alien Romulus. Which one of those to you is the best picture that I should watch next?
Okay. In order to stop the rest from being cheesed out of consideration, you've watched Aliens 1 and 2?
Yes.
Check out Prometheus and then watch Aliens 3.
All right,
Not
I can do
because of
that.
any timeline thing, but because of the ideas and concepts that are put forth in Prometheus will open you to some of the understandings of why things are the way they are in Alien 3. Alien 3 doesn't explain it very well. She's a clone. That doesn't really do it justice, because it's more than that. There more has gone on, and you get hints of the type of stuff that's going on from Prometheus that will carry over well into Aliens 3 once you kind of wrap your brain around it.
Because it's just one of those franchises that most people know a lot about, and for whatever reason, I've just never cared enough to watch any of it. But maybe if I did, then this show that I've just watched would make slightly
Come
more
on,
sense to me.
man. Sigourney Weaver, dude. She's so fucking hard in that series, bro.
Did you know they had to manually remove her pubes from the underwear scene in the first movie? I actually just read about that when I was doing my background for this very program that we're on right now.
What's his name?
And there was a whole interview with Ridley Scott saying she didn't want to pull up her underwear, and she didn't want to shave her bush. So I had to actually pay a guy $5,000 to go through with a little paintbrush through every frame of the picture, because we didn't have digital back then, and remove all of her little minge hairs. And he actually said minge. He said minge hairs, and I thought that was fantastic.
You gotta love it, bro.
I know.
But yeah, Prometheus, then Alien 3, and after that, it really doesn't matter, because it really doesn't matter. You Covenant or Romulus. Covenant. There's a few things in Romulus that are kind of throwbacks to things that happened in Covenant, but Covenant to me struck me like a memberberry soup. You remember what I was talking about with what's the name of that show? Skeleton Crew.
Yes.
The Star Wars children's thing, the Goonies in space.
Yeah.
Those kind of member berries where they're just smashed into your face and rubbed around. That's what Covenant gave me vibes of.
There's so many member berries, you can just stomp all over them and make some wine.
You can make some member wine, which sounds
member
horrible.
Wine. Yep. You can get drunk on the member wine, so you can kind of.
I don't know if you want to drink any of my member wine, bro.
And anesthetize yourself to the number of member berries that are being thrown in your face by the producers of the thing you're watching.
Yeah, and Romulus is kind of the same way, but it does kind of harken, if I remember right, it harkens back to Covenant, not so much back to the originals of the Alien franchise. It harkens an awful lot back to Alien 3, which is one of and Prometheus, which is why I say watch Prometheus, then Alien 3, then the other two, and some of the stuff that they do in those two will make a little more sense.
And that's exactly how I felt when I was watching the opening sequence of this Alien Earth show, even though it's probably been quite a few years since I watched either the first or the second Aliens picture. But like, as soon as it comes on screen, I'm like, my God, we are really trying hard to recreate the visual aesthetic of the first Alien movie here. Even the cockpit of the spaceship, where it's got that whole 1970s thing going on, where it's just flashing, blinking lights everywhere, and we don't make much of an effort to say what they are or what they do. It's a sci-fi movie, so we've got flashing, blinking lights everywhere, and we've got the the green letters on the old school CRT computer screens, and we've got a guy that looks exactly like Yaphet Kotto. We've even got actors that are seem like they were specifically cast to resemble the members of the cast of the original picture, which I feel like somebody really wanted to make a remake of the original Alien movie, and that's that might be one of the movies that got tossed into the melting pot of what wound up being this series. But who knows? I will do some more watching and draw some more informed conclusions.
Absolutely. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This has been an amazing show. Do the thing.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for joining us here on the Blast Radius tonight. I thought we had a very illuminating discussion about ballroom derangement syndrome and the history of the Alien franchise, and indeed, New York City sewer rats. Mr. Sasquatch and I, we both hope you have a wonderful tomorrow and an edifying day after that, and a really fulfilling week, and we will convene back here next Sunday, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. Have a fantastic week. See you next time. Do not comply. Get off my lawn.
It's frozen. I'm trying to hit the button. It's not hitting.